Hello, everyone. Before we get started on our episode, I know it's been a while, but before we do, just make sure to follow the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or where you get your podcasts. You can follow myself on Instagram at the Franchise. Episode description will be available in the notes. I want to thank Gemini for helping me out with the music and also the cover art. So sit back, relax, and let Baki introduce you to this week's episode.
Yeah, Aki here. Today, I traded my school uniform for some pink working clothes, and I am scrubbing the floors of a giant magical bathhouse. I also got these little squeaky sprites helping me carry my podcast bucket, and then demand star candy for their labor. Let's hand it over to your host for episode 18. And one thing, don't forget your name.
Ready? Let's go! Yeah! Let the next big quest flow. Grab my bucket, hold on tight for a show that's super bright. Is it action? Is it feels? Let's find out what's for real. It's the Anime Bucket Quest. Yeah! The Anime Bucket Quest!
Welcome back, Questers, to another episode of Anime Bucket Quest. I'm your host, the Franchise, and today we are doing something a little different. We are stepping away from episodic television to look at a singular, monumental piece of cinema. It's a film that is largely responsible for so many of us having shelves lined up with Studio Ghibli apparel and figures. It was the highest grossing film in Japanese history for nearly 2 decades and remains the only hand-drawn, non-English language film to win the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature. Today, we are reviewing the 2001 masterpiece, Spirited Away. Spirited Away tells the story of a 10-year-old Chihiro Oyino, a sullen, scared girl who is moving to a new town with her parents. On the way, they take a wrong turn and stumble into an abandoned amusement park that's actually a gateway to the spirit world. When her parents eat the food of spirits and are cursed to turn into pigs, Chihiro is trapped. To survive and find a way to save her parents, she must get a job at a massive supernatural bathhouse run by a terrifying witch named Yubaba, who steals Chihiro's name, renaming her Sen. Because this film's legacy is so immense, we have to talk about how it was made. The backdrop of this production is just as fascinating as the film itself. Let's talk about the unretirement. Following the massive success of Princess Mononoke in 1997, legendary director Hayao Miyazaki announced his retirement. He was exhausted. However, during a summer vacation at his mountain cabin with his friend and associate producer Senji Okuda, Miyazaki observed Okuda's 10-year-old daughter and her friends. He realized that the manga and anime aimed at girls her age were entirely focused on romance and crushes. He wanted to make a movie for real 10-year-old girls, a film that told them they already possessed the inner strength they needed to face the world. This inspiration pulled him out of retirement. Here's the craziest part of Spirited Away's production. There was no script. Miyazaki famously did not write traditional screenplays. The animation production started before the story was even finished. Miyazaki let the story develop organically as he drew, relying on his subconscious to guide Chihiro's journey. He notoriously said in interviews that he didn't make the film, he just followed Chihiro where she wanted to go. The stunning, towering bathhouse, the Aburaya, was inspired by several real-world locations in Japan, notably the ancient Dogo Onsen in Matsuyama and the architecture preserved at the Edo Tokyo Open Air Architectural Museum, which Miyazaki visited frequently for inspiration. The design intentionally blends traditional Japanese Meiji-era architecture with Western-influenced flourishes, creating an eerie sense of a bygone glutinous era of Japanese history. Let's talk about the hidden lore. To really pad out this review, we have to talk about what Spirit Away is actually saying beneath its whimsical surface. It is a far darker than a standard children's fairy tale. We have themes like the loss of identity. When Yubaba steals Chihiro's kanji characters from her contract, leaving her only with Sen, which just means 1000, it's a direct metaphor for entering the modern workforce. You lose your name, your individuality, and you become a number in a capitalist machine. If Chihiro forgets her old life, she stays trapped forever. A cautionary tale about losing your roots. Then there's the bubble economy and greed. Chihiro's parents are classic products of the late 1980s Japanese economic bubble. They display an arrogant consumerism, driving an expensive foreign car, taking whatever they want, and showing that they have credit cards and cash to pay for food. Their transformation into pigs is a biting critique of an unchecked greed that left Japan with abandoned amusement parks and ghost towns in the 1990s. Now let's talk about environmental decay. The scene where Chihiro cleanses the stink spirit is actually drawn from Miyazaki's real life experience participating in a local river cleanup. He vividly recalled pulling a discarded bicycle out of the riverbed mud. In the film, that exact image is mirrored when Chihiro pulls a bicycle handle out of the spirit's side, unleashing a torrent of human garbage and revealing a majestic ancient river spirits. Let's talk about the anime experience and the animation technique. Visually, Spirited Away is arguably the pinnacle of traditional hand-drawn 2D animation. It has animism and Shintoism. The film is drenched in Japanese folklore and Shinto concepts of animism. The idea that spirits, also known as kami, reside in everything from rivers to radishes. Then you have the quiet moments, the concept of ma. What separates Spirit Away from Western animation of the time is its use of ma, the Japanese concept of negative space or emptiness. Miyazaki deliberately inserts moments where nothing advances the plot. Chihiro sitting on a balcony watching the ocean, or the hauntingly quiet train ride alongside the faceless spirit. These moments let the audience and the characters breathe, making the world feel incredibly real. Let's talk about the digital transition. Well, 99% of the film is meticulously hand-drawn and painted. Spirited Away marked Ghibli's first major embrace of digital technology. They used computer-assisted software to handle the immense tracking shots through the bathhouse and to apply textures to complex elements, like the moving water and the glowing lights of the spirit marketplace. Yet, it's done so seamlessly that it never compromises the organic, warm, hand-painted aesthetic. Now, let's talk about the opening and ending. Is it a banger or is it a skip? Obviously, films don't have traditional openings and endings themes, but we absolutely have to rate the soundtrack. My verdict is transcendent. The score is composed by Miyazaki's longtime collaborator, Joe Hisaishi. The opening track, One Summer's Day, is one of the most recognizable and emotionally potent piano pieces ever written for film. It perfectly evokes nostalgia for a childhood summer that you're not even sure you lived. The ending vocal track, Always With Me by Itsumo Nanodemo by Yumi Kimura, is completely unskippable. Fun fact, Kimura actually wrote this song for a different Miyazaki film that ended up being scrapped, but Miyazaki loved it so much he listened to it constantly while storyboarding Spirited Away. It perfectly fit the film's emotional resolution. Let's talk about the breakout character. While Haku the River Dragon is iconic, the breakout star of the entire Studio Ghibli pantheon is No Face, also known as Kaonashi. There's a metaphor of it. No Face is a brilliant character design. He is a spirit with no voice and no identity of his own. He simply reflects the emotions and desires of the people around him. When he is surrounded by the greedy bathhouse workers, he becomes a monstrous, gluttonous beast that consumes everything, but when he's with the pure-hearted Chihiro, he returns to a quiet, gentle state. He represents the danger of losing yourself in a capitalist, greedy society. Let's shed a light on our creator spotlight, which is a global legacy. Hayao Miyazaki, Studio Ghibli, and the global breakthrough. Miyazaki is an auteur in the truest sense, but the historical significance of this film's international release is massive. It clearly changed how the West view anime. Before 2001, mainstream Western audiences largely associate anime with cyberpunk violence like Akira or kid shows like Pokemon. Spirited Away smashed that ceiling. John Lasseter, the former head of Pixar, was a massive fan of Miyazaki and personally campaigned for the film to Disney executives. He secured the distribution rights and painstakingly supervised the English adaptation to make sure no scenes were cut or modified. A victory over Disney's historic tendency to heavily edit foreign films. When it won the Academy Award in 2003, Miyazaki didn't even attend the ceremony as a silent protest against the Iraq War, but the win solidified Studio Ghibli as a household name globally. Let's talk about source material breakdown. Spirited Away is a wholly original work, straight from the mind of Hayao Miyazaki, so there is no manga showdown today. It stands purely on its own as an original cinematic vision. Now it's time for our great debate, dub versus sub. This is a film where the debate over whether to watch the dub or sub is intensely searched and discussed by fans to this day. I'm going to call this, obviously, a perfect tie. The original Japanese version is flawless, specifically Rumi Hiragi's incredibly authentic performance as a whiny, easily frightened, but ultimately brave 10-year-old girl. The dub. The English dub, directed by Kirk Wise, is one of the best ever produced. The late Devay Chase is fantastic as Chihiro. Suzanne Plessette brings an incredible theatrical gravel to the witch Yubaba, and Susie Geoghegan, who you remember is the voice of Megara from Hercules, is the perfect as Lynn. You cannot go wrong with either version. Now, where can you watch this film? If you want to revisit the Spirit Realm, Spirited Away, along with almost the entire Studio Ghibli catalog, it's currently available to stream on Max in the US or HBO Max now, and also available on Netflix overseas. You can also see that G-Kids worked with Studio Ghibli to release the films again on Blu-ray. My conclusion. So, does Spirited Away earn a spot on this ultimate anime bucket list? To me, it's an S-tier Hall of Fame. It is required viewing not just for anime fans, but for anyone who loves cinema. It is a breathtaking, terrifying, and ultimately uplifting journey about finding your courage and holding on to your true identity in a world that constantly tries to change you. That's a wrap for episode 18 of Anime Bucket Quest. I've been your host, The Franchise, and Baki is currently chasing a soot sprite for her star candy. So we're going to sign off. Remember your name, and we'll see you on the next quest. As always, geek on, take care, and watch anime.